Picture this, it's 1994. You're sitting in a corner office on Wall Street. You're making over $100,000 a year, serious money back then. You've got security, prestige, everything most people dream about. And then, you read a statistic. Just one number. 22%. 22% annual growth in internet usage. For most people, that's just a number in a report. But for Jeff Bezos, that number was a doorway. A doorway to something that would eventually touch nearly every aspect of modern life. This is the story of how one man's leap of faith in a garage became the everything store. But before Amazon sold electronics, before it streamed movies, before Alexa answered our questions, it started with something beautifully simple. Books. So let's rewind to that moment of decision. Jeff Bezos wasn't some starry-eyed college dropout with nothing to lose. He was a senior vice president at D. Shaw, a prestigious hedge fund in New York City. He had a career trajectory that pointed straight up. But that 22% figure wouldn't leave him alone. He called it his regret minimization framework. Bezos imagined himself at 80 years old, looking back on his life. Would he regret leaving a secure Wall Street job? Maybe for a moment. But would he regret not trying to catch the wave of the internet revolution? Absolutely. So he quit. And here's where the story gets cinematic. Bezos didn't just resign and hop on a plane to Silicon Valley like you might expect. No, he and his wife Mackenzie packed up their life and drove 3,000 miles across America, from New York to Seattle. And according to legend, Mackenzie drove while Jeff sat in the passenger seat, typing out the business plan on a laptop. Why Seattle? It wasn't the tech hub it is today. But it had something Amazon needed: proximity to one of the largest book distributors in the country, and no sales tax requirements that would complicate early operations. It was strategic. It was practical. It was the beginning. On July 5, 1994, Amazon.com went live. Not with fanfare. Not with a press conference. Just live. An online bookstore operating out of a garage in Bellevue, Washington. Now, here's a detail that tells you everything about Bezos' ambitions from day one: the name. He didn't call it Books Online, or Jeff's Library, or something cute and limited. He named it after the Amazon River, the largest river in the world. Because even when he was selling books from a garage, Bezos was thinking vast. He was thinking endless. He was thinking of something that could flow into every corner of commerce. But ambition doesn't pay the bills. For that, Bezos needed capital. He turned to his parents, who were retired, and asked them to invest their life savings into his internet bookstore idea. Picture that conversation. Mom, Dad, I left my six-figure Wall Street job to sell books on this new thing called the World Wide Web. Can I have $250,000? To their eternal credit, and possibly bewilderment, they said yes. $250,000. They believed in their son, even when they admitted they didn't really understand what the internet was. Now, if you've heard anything about early Amazon, you've probably heard about the door desks. And yes, it's true. From the very beginning, Bezos bought cheap doors from Home Depot, slapped some legs on them, and used them as desks. You might think that's just a charming startup story, right? Scrappy kids making do with limited resources? But here's what makes it significant. Bezos kept using door desks even after Amazon had money. Even after they moved into real office space. The door desk became a symbol, a physical reminder of a core value: frugality. Every dollar not spent on fancy furniture was a dollar that could be invested in customer experience, in inventory, in growth. The door desk wasn't poverty, it was philosophy. And in that garage, with those door desks, Amazon shipped its first book in July of 1995. The title? Fluid Concepts and Creative Analogies, Computer Models of the Fundamental Mechanisms of Thought, by Douglas Hofstadter. Not exactly a bestseller. But it was the first. And here's what's remarkable. Within weeks of launching, Amazon was shipping books to all 50 states and 45 countries. From a garage. Think about that. Before social media, before viral marketing, before any of the tools we take for granted today, word was spreading. People were finding this bookstore in cyberspace and placing orders. Within just 2 months, Amazon was doing something extraordinary. $20,000 in sales per week. Now you might hear that number and think, okay, that's nice. But remember, this is 1995. E-commerce barely existed. Most people didn't have credit cards saved online because saving credit cards online wasn't really a thing yet. Every purchase required trust. Trust that this website was real. Trust that your book would arrive. Trust that giving your credit card to the internet was safe. And they trusted. The growth was exponential. The kind of growth that makes venture capitalists sit up and pay attention. And one firm in particular noticed, Kleiner Perkins, one of the most prestigious VC firms in Silicon Valley. Here's where it gets interesting. Kleiner Perkins valued Amazon at $30 million, before the company was really generating significant revenue. $8 million of investment for a slice of an online bookstore that was still operating out of modest facilities, still using door desks, still very much in startup mode. Why? Because the investors saw what Bezos saw. They saw that 22% internet growth rate. They saw the weekly sales numbers doubling and doubling again. They saw the potential for something much bigger than books. October 1995. The Seattle Times runs a story. The headline calls Amazon Earth's biggest bookstore. Earth's biggest bookstore. And technically, it was true. Barnes & Noble might have had bigger physical locations, but no single store, nowhere on Earth, had the selection Amazon offered. Over 1 million titles available to browse from your home computer. At 2 a.m. in your pajamas if you wanted. But here's the human detail that I love. When that article ran, you know who was still packing boxes? Jeff Bezos. The CEO, the founder, the guy who'd left Wall Street. He was on the warehouse floor with everyone else, taping up packages, writing addresses, making sure books got to customers on time. He'd sleep on the floor during crunch times. Not because he had to, even then, he could have afforded a hotel nearby. But because he wanted to be in it. In the struggle. In the building. Now, while Bezos was packing boxes, he was also innovating the experience in ways that seem obvious now but were revolutionary then. The one-click buy button. Look, I know this doesn't sound exciting. It's a button. You click it, you buy something. But think about what online shopping was like before this. You'd select your item, then fill out a form with your address, then fill out another form with your credit card, then confirm, then wait for a confirmation email. Amazon said, what if you just clicked once? One click. Book purchased. Done. That little yellow button reduced friction. It made impulse purchases possible. It made shopping feel effortless. And Amazon patented it, which meant for years, no one else could offer that same seamless experience. But Bezos wasn't just thinking about user experience. He was thinking about selection. While big retailers were demanding 60 to 70% margins from publishers, Amazon approached small publishers with a different offer. Give us a 30% discount, and we'll give you access to the entire internet. For small publishers who couldn't get shelf space at Barnes & Noble, who couldn't afford national distribution, this was revolutionary. Suddenly, obscure academic texts, niche poetry collections, forgotten classics, they all had the same storefront as Stephen King. By 1997, something incredible had happened. 1 million customers. Amazon had reached 1 million people willing to buy books from a website instead of a store they could walk into. And Bezos was already expanding. Music in 1998. Then toys. Then, well, eventually everything. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. In 1998, Amazon pulled in $610 million in revenue. Remember, this is just 4 years after launching. 4 years from garage to over $500 million in sales. But here's a fun behind-the-scenes detail about those early days. The company name almost wasn't Amazon at all. Bezos' first choice? Cadabra. As in, abracadabra. Magic. Which kind of makes sense, right? You click a button and books magically appear at your door. But when Bezos told his lawyer the name, the lawyer heard Cadaver? Cadaver.com, the online corpse store. So that name got scrapped pretty quickly. May 15, 1997. Amazon goes public. $18 per share. The IPO raised $54 million, and suddenly Amazon wasn't just an online bookstore. It was a publicly traded company with shareholders, with quarterly expectations, with the world watching. And in his very first shareholder letter, Bezos made something crystal clear. This is day one. Day one. Not, we've arrived. Not, we've made it. Day one. Because for Bezos, going public wasn't the finish line. It was barely even the starting line. The IPO money wasn't for celebrating, it was fuel. Fuel for the vision that had been there from the beginning, hidden in that name he'd chosen 3,000 miles from Seattle, typed into a laptop while crossing the American heartland. Amazon. The biggest river. The everything store. And this was just the beginning. Because what came next would test every ounce of that day one mentality. The dot-com bubble was forming. Competition was intensifying. And Bezos was about to make moves that would either prove him a genius or bankrupt the company entirely. There's a famous photograph from the year 2000. Jeff Bezos is on the cover of a magazine, and someone has drawn a clown nose on his face. Not as a joke, as an insult. The headline reads something like, Amazon.bomb. This wasn't some fringe publication taking shots. This was the mainstream business press openly mocking the company that, just 3 years earlier, had been the darling of Wall Street. What happened? Well, everything happened. Let me paint you a picture of just how bad things got. Remember that IPO price? $18 a share in 1997? By December of 1999, Amazon's stock had soared to $107 per share. Bezos was worth billions on paper. Amazon was unstoppable. And then the music stopped. The dot-com bubble, that insane speculation that any company with a dot-com in its name was worth billions, it didn't just deflate. It exploded. Spectacularly. Between 2000 and 2001, Amazon stock plummeted 90%. From $107 down to $7 per share. $7. 90% of the company's value gone. And it wasn't just Amazon. Pets.com, Web and Eats, companies that had raised hundreds of millions of dollars were shutting down, auctioning off their Herman Miller chairs and foosball tables. The internet gold rush was over, and the graveyard was filling up fast. Analysts were writing obituaries for Amazon. They'll never be profitable, they said. They're burning through cash. It's only a matter of time. And you know what? They weren't entirely wrong to worry. Amazon was in serious trouble. Bezos faced an impossible choice. The kind of choice that defines whether you're just a businessperson or a true leader. Amazon had to cut costs. Deep cuts. The kind that hurt. In that dark period, Amazon laid off 1,300 employees. 1,300 people who'd believed in the vision, who'd worked those brutal startup hours, who'd shipped boxes and written code and answered customer emails. They got pink slips. Now I want you to understand something. For Bezos, this wasn't just a line item on a spreadsheet. Every layoff was a failure of the dream. Because Amazon's culture had always been about building something together, about day one energy and missionary zeal. But here's what separated Amazon from the dying dot-coms around them. They didn't just discard that talent. They retrained people. Warehouse workers who might have been let go elsewhere were trained for new roles. Engineers were shifted to different projects. Amazon didn't just cut, they transformed. Because Bezos knew something that the obituary writers didn't, the internet wasn't a fad. E-commerce wasn't going away. Amazon just had to survive long enough to prove it. But survival required more than hope. It required a fundamental shift in thinking. There's a phrase you hear in business. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is reality. For Amazon's first years, they'd focused on growth, revenue, customers, market share. But as the stock cratered and creditors started circling, Bezos had a come-to-Jesus moment with his leadership team. In one meeting, he reportedly said something that became legendary inside Amazon. "We're all going to zero unless we focus on cash flow. All going to zero. Not, we might struggle. Not, we'll have a tough quarter. Zero. The company could die." And everyone in that room needed to understand that. So Amazon invented something brilliant. Something that would become a cornerstone of their entire business model going forward. Negative working capital. Now I know. Negative working capital. Sounds like business school jargon. But stick with me because this is actually fascinating. Normally, a retailer works like this. You buy inventory from suppliers, you pay them within 30 to 60 days, and then you sell that inventory to customers. So your cash is tied up in products sitting on shelves, waiting to be sold. Amazon flipped that script entirely. They collected payments from customers immediately when they ordered. But they didn't pay suppliers until 30, 60, sometimes 90 days later. So Amazon was holding customer cash and using it to fund operations before they had to pay for the products. Essentially, their customers were financing their inventory. The bigger Amazon grew, the more cash they had on hand. Growth became self-funding. It was elegant. It was clever. And it kept them alive when banks wouldn't lend and investors had fled. But Bezos wasn't content with just surviving. He never was. While other dot-coms were closing up shop, Amazon was expanding. In 2000, right in the middle of the crash, Amazon launched something that seemed insane at the time, the marketplace. Third-party sellers. People who weren't Amazon, selling on Amazon's platform. Using Amazon's infrastructure, paying Amazon a commission. Critics savaged this move. Why would Amazon let competitors sell on their own site? This will cannibalize their sales. It's a desperate play. But Bezos saw what others didn't. He saw selection. Millions of products that Amazon would never stock themselves. He saw that customers didn't care who sold them the book or the toy. They cared about selection, price, and convenience. And he was right. By 2003, that marketplace was generating $1.2 billion in sales. Today, third-party sellers account for 60% of Amazon's total volume. 60%. That desperate play became one of the most profitable decisions in e-commerce history. Those third-party seller fees, that's almost pure margin for Amazon. They don't hold the inventory, they don't take the risk, but they collect the commission. But there was still the problem of making the core business profitable. Because you can have all the clever financial engineering in the world, but at some point, you have to actually make money. The breakthrough came with something simple: shipping. In the early days, Amazon charged variable shipping based on the order. Customers would add items to their cart and then get surprised by a $15 shipping charge at checkout. Cart abandonment was brutal. So Amazon did something radical: fixed price shipping. Flat rate. No surprises. And then they took it further with Amazon Prime. But that's a story for another segment. The point is, by fixing the shipping cost structure, Amazon removed friction. Orders increased. Efficiency increased. By 2003, that $2 billion debt that had threatened to sink the company? Amazon was profitable. Operating profit. Actual money coming in above what was going out. And here's the beautiful detail. In 2002, Amazon achieved positive operating cash flow. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were thriving. The analysts who'd written them off? Silent. The magazine covers with the clown nose? Forgotten. Jeff Bezos, who'd been called a fool, who'd watched his net worth evaporate, who'd had to lay off 1,300 people he'd hired with promises of changing the world, he'd been right. Day one wasn't over. It was just beginning. Now, while all this drama was happening on the retail side, something fascinating was brewing in Amazon's engineering department. Something that would eventually become more valuable than the retail business itself. See, Amazon had a problem. A very specific, very expensive problem. Their website would get hammered during the holiday season. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas shopping, their servers would be maxed out. So they built infrastructure to handle those peak loads. But here's the thing about peak loads, they're peaks. The other 11 months of the year? All that computing power sat mostly idle. Amazon was paying for servers running at maybe 30% capacity most of the time, just so they wouldn't crash on the busiest days. This drove Bezos crazy. Waste. Inefficiency. Excess capacity doing nothing. And then someone had an idea. What if we rented out that excess capacity? What if other companies could use Amazon's servers during off-peak times? What if Amazon's internal infrastructure problem could become a product? Now, this wasn't an obvious idea. Amazon was a retailer. They sold books and toys and electronics. Why would they become a technology infrastructure company? But Bezos had always thought differently about what Amazon was. To him, Amazon wasn't a store. It was a technology company that happened to sell things. Every problem Amazon solved, inventory management, recommendation engines, massive database systems, server capacity, those were technology problems. And if Amazon had solved them, other companies probably needed those solutions too. So in 2006, Amazon launched two services that would change the technology industry forever. S3, Simple Storage Service. Rent storage space on Amazon's servers. Pay only for what you use. EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud. Rent computing power by the hour. 10 cents per hour. Spin up a server in minutes, shut it down when you're done, only pay for what you used. Now, if you're not a tech person, you might not immediately grasp how revolutionary this was. So let me put it in perspective. Before AWS, if you wanted to start a tech company, you needed tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, of dollars just for servers. You had to predict how much capacity you need, buy the hardware, set up a data center, hire people to maintain it. And if you guessed wrong? If your app was more successful than expected, your servers would crash. If it was less successful, you'd have expensive hardware sitting idle. AWS said, forget all that. Just use our servers. Pay as you go. Scale up when you need to, scale down when you don't. Suddenly, two college kids in a dorm room could launch a startup with the same computing infrastructure as a Fortune 500 company. For pennies. AWS came from Amazon's internal needs, cutting their own computing requirements from 70% wasted capacity down to 30%. But by turning that efficiency into a product, they created an entirely new business. Today, AWS generates more operating profit than all of Amazon's retail operations combined. It powers Netflix, it powers Spotify, it powers half the internet. It made the smartphone revolution possible, made the app economy possible, made cloud computing the default rather than the exception. And it started because Jeff Bezos looked at excess server capacity during off-peak months and asked, how do we turn waste into value? There's an email that Bezos sent to his employees in 2001, right in the darkest days of the crash. When the stock was in freefall and the press was writing obituaries. When layoffs were happening and the future looked bleak. The email was simple. Just a few lines. We are going to be stronger ahead. Not. We might be. Not. I hope we'll be. We are going to be stronger. And the remarkable thing? He meant it. And he was right. Because while everyone else was panicking, while .coms were liquidating and investors were fleeing anything with a .com attached, Amazon was building. They were laying groundwork. That excess capacity infrastructure? Groundwork for AWS. That marketplace platform? Groundwork for becoming the everything store. That obsessive focus on cash flow and efficiency? Groundwork for sustainable profitability. The .com crash didn't kill Amazon. It forged Amazon. It burned away the excess, the speculation, the hype, and left behind something harder, smarter, more resilient. From $107 to $7 and back again. From Amazon.bomb to Are you sure you're not Prime? The valley of death didn't claim Amazon. Amazon walked through it, emerged on the other side, and brought back the tools they'd need to conquer the world. But the question remained, now that they'd survived, now that they were profitable, now that they had this incredible AWS engine printing money, what would Bezos do next? Because for him, survival was never the goal. Dominance was. Most companies hang motivational posters on their walls. Teamwork makes the dream work. Think outside the box. Generic phrases that everyone nods at and nobody remembers by lunch. Amazon doesn't do motivational posters. Amazon does something far more unusual. They turn furniture into philosophy. Remember those door desks from the garage days? The cheap doors from Home Depot with legs bolted on. They never went away. Even when Amazon moved into sleek office buildings, even when they had billions in revenue, even when they could afford Herman Miller chairs and standing desks and whatever Silicon Valley was calling essential that year, Bezos kept the door desks. And it wasn't nostalgia. It wasn't quirky startup aesthetics. It was a daily, physical reminder of a principle that Bezos believed would either make or break the company. You don't get points for headcount. You don't get points for fancy offices. You don't get points for spending money. You get points for results. That door desk sitting in a corner office wasn't just furniture. It was a manifesto. Every executive who looked at it was supposed to think, what am I spending money on that doesn't directly serve the customer? What am I doing that's about status instead of substance? The door desk was Amazon saying, we're still in the garage. We're always in the garage. Because the moment you think you've made it, the moment you start caring more about appearance than function, that's the moment you lose. But frugality alone doesn't build an empire. Plenty of cheap companies fail. What made Amazon different was what they paired that frugality with, an almost religious obsession with the customer. And I don't use the word religious lightly. At Amazon, customer obsession isn't just a value. It's leadership principle number one. Literally. They're numbered, and customer obsession is at the top. Not innovation. Not profit. Not growth. Customer obsession. Now, every company claims to care about customers, right? The customer is always right. Customer service is our priority. Blah blah blah. Amazon institutionalized it in a way that was almost radical. They created something called working backwards. And here's how it works. Before you build a product, before you write a single line of code, you write the press release. The press release announcing the product, that doesn't exist yet. Think about that. You write the story of the launch. You describe what the customer will experience, what problem it solves, why they'll love it. You write the FAQ, the questions customers will ask and how you'll answer them. And if you can't write a compelling press release, if the imaginary customer in that imaginary article doesn't get excited, you don't build it. This forces you to think from the customer backward to the solution, instead of from your technology forward to the customer. It's the difference between, we invented this cool thing, now let's find someone to buy it, and, customers need this thing, now let's invent it. Amazon doesn't just do this once. They do it for every major project, every new feature, every new service. And it's not symbolic. They literally won't approve your project without that press release. Without that backward-looking vision of what customer delight looks like. But it doesn't stop at launch. Amazon tracks something called Net Promoter Score, NPS, which measures how likely customers are to recommend you. And they don't check it quarterly or monthly. Daily. Every single day, leadership sees, are we delighting customers today? Yesterday we were. Today are we? That's not normal. That's obsession. Now, let's talk about the second part of that equation, frugality driving invention. There's a famous Jeff Bezos quote. Constraints breed resourcefulness, self-sufficiency, and invention. Most companies see limited budget as a problem. Amazon sees it as a feature. When you don't have money to throw at problems, you have to get creative. You have to find elegant solutions. You have to actually think instead of just spending. In the early days, Amazon didn't buy filing cabinets. You know what they used? Cardboard boxes. The same boxes they shipped products in, they reused them as storage. Stack them up, organize your files, save thousands of dollars. You might think, okay, but once they were successful, surely they bought real filing cabinets. Nope. They kept reusing boxes. Because the question wasn't, can we afford filing cabinets? The question was, why would we spend money on filing cabinets when boxes work fine? That mindset, multiplied across thousands of decisions, saved millions of dollars. Millions that got invested in better warehouses, better technology, lower prices for customers. The door desk. The cardboard boxes. These weren't poverty, they were competitive advantage. But here's where Amazon's culture gets really interesting. They explicitly reject short-term thinking. Most public companies live and die by quarterly earnings. Wall Street wants to see growth every 3 months. Miss your quarterly target, and your stock gets hammered. Bezos looked at that system and said, that's stupid. If you're optimizing for the next 3 months, you'll never build anything great. Anything truly transformative takes years. So Amazon built a planning process called OP1, Operating Plan 1. OP1 happens once a year. Teams present their plans not for the next quarter, but for the next several years. And here's the key, they're not rewarded for incremental improvements. They're rewarded for moonshots. Want to add 5% more efficiency to the warehouse? That's nice. But what if we completely reinvent the warehouse with robots? Want to improve delivery times by a day? Great. But what if we deliver in 2 hours? What if we deliver the same day? What if we anticipate what customers want before they even order? The culture explicitly rejects incrementalism. Small thinking. Playing it safe. If you're not proposing something that sounds a little crazy, you're not thinking big enough. And this isn't just rhetoric. Amazon has invested billions, into projects that lost money for years. AWS was subsidized by retail. Prime Video, Prime Shipping, Alexa, Kindle, all of these were massive bets that took years to pay off. Most CEOs would get fired for that. Bezos built a culture that demanded it. Okay, but big ideas are easy. Execution is hard. And as companies grow, they usually get slower. More bureaucratic. More meetings, more committees, more layers of approval. Amazon fought this with something called 2 pizza teams. The rule is simple. If a team can't be fed with 2 pizzas, it's too big. Typically, that's 6 to 10 people max, small, autonomous teams that can move fast. No endless meetings with 30 people. No matrix management where you need approvals from 5 different departments. You own your project. You have the resources you need. Go build it. But even small teams can get bogged down in consensus building. Everyone wants to weigh in. Everyone wants their voice heard. And by the time you've made everyone happy, 6 months have passed. So Amazon added another principle. Disagree and commit. You're in a meeting. You think the idea is wrong. You argue your case. But the team decides to move forward anyway. You don't get to keep fighting. You don't get to drag your feet or sabotage through passive resistance. You disagree, you make your case, and then, whether you agree or not, you commit fully to making it work. It's not about winning arguments. It's about speed. Make a decision and move. A good decision made quickly is better than a perfect decision made slowly. Because in the time you're debating, your competitors are building. Now, here's where Amazon's culture gets, let's say, controversial. They're famous, or infamous, for their hiring and firing practices. Amazon has something called bar raisers. These are experienced Amazonians who sit in on job interviews with one specific mission: make sure we only hire people who are better than the people we already have. The standard isn't, is this person good? It's, is this person in the top 1%? Bar raisers can veto any hire, even if the hiring manager desperately wants them. Because the principle is, every hire should raise the average talent level of the company. If you're hiring people who are just pretty good, you're lowering the bar with every hire. And on the flip side, Amazon fires people. Swiftly. Not cruelly, at least not in principle, but without hesitation. If you're not performing, if you're not raising the bar, if you're not obsessed with customer excellence, you're not going to last long. This creates an environment that's demanding. Some people thrive in it. They love the high standards, the intellectual rigor, the feeling that they're surrounded by the best. Other people burn out. They find it punishing, relentless, sometimes even cruel. Amazon's response? This isn't for everyone. And that's okay. But if you join Amazon, you know what you're signing up for: excellence or exit. It's Darwinian. It's intense. And it's part of what makes Amazon Amazon. But the intensity isn't just about people. It's about data. At most companies, executives get monthly reports. Nice PowerPoint decks with charts and summary statistics. They make high-level decisions based on high-level numbers. Not at Amazon. Amazon executives are expected to dive deep. That's not metaphorical, it's a leadership principle. You need to know what's happening at ground level. Not summaries. Raw data. Every week, executives audit data. They look at the actual numbers. Customer complaint rates. Shipping times. Return rates. They know which warehouse had a slowdown on Tuesday afternoon and why. And here's a detail that captures the transparency culture. Amazon executives don't have private offices. Even VPs. Even the C-suite. Glass walls. Everyone can see everyone. Why? Because private offices create hierarchy. They create us and them. They let executives hide away and lose touch with what's actually happening. Glass walls mean you're visible. You're accessible. You can't hide in your corner office and ignore problems. This drives some people crazy. There's no privacy. There's no sanctuary. You're always on. But that's the point. At Amazon, leadership isn't about status. It's about being in the arena, sweating with everyone else. So let's step back and see what we've built here. What is Amazon's culture, really? Door desks that remind you not to waste money. Customer obsession that starts with the press release you haven't written for the product that doesn't exist yet. Frugality that turns constraints into competitive advantages. Long-term thinking that makes quarterly earnings irrelevant. Two pizza teams that move fast and disagree and commit even faster. Bar-raising hires and swift fires that ensure only the best remain. Deep dives into data and glass-walled offices that make hiding impossible. This isn't a normal corporate culture. It's not about free snacks and ping-pong tables and fun company retreats. It's a machine. A machine designed to move fast, think long-term, obsess over customers, and never, ever get comfortable. Some people call it genius. Some call it toxic. Most people who've worked there call it both. But here's what nobody can deny: it works. Because while other companies were building empires on hype and hope, Amazon was building an empire on principles. Principles carved into those door desks. Principles enforced in every hire and every firing. Principles that said, we're still day one. We're still in the garage. We're still hungry. And the moment we stop being hungry, the moment we start caring more about comfort than customer obsession, that's the day Amazon dies. But that day hasn't come. Not yet. And with this culture, this relentless, unforgiving, brilliant culture, maybe it never will. But culture alone doesn't conquer the world. For that, you need products. Revolutionary products that change how people live. And oh, did Amazon have products coming? February 2005. Jeff Bezos stands in front of his leadership team with an idea that sounds completely insane. What if we gave customers free shipping? Not just on one order. On everything. All year long. For a flat annual fee. His CFO probably had heart palpitations. His logistics team probably thought he'd lost his mind. Because Amazon was already razor thin on margins. Shipping was expensive. And Bezos wanted to just give it away? But there was method to the madness. Because Bezos understood something profound about human psychology. friction kills behavior. Every time a customer looked at their cart and saw shipping charges, they hesitated. They'd add more items to hit the free shipping threshold. They'd abandon carts. They'd wait. They'd think twice. What if you removed that friction entirely? Amazon Prime launched in 2005. $79 per year. Unlimited free 2-day shipping on eligible items. Wall Street thought it was suicide. They're going to lose money on every shipment. This will bankrupt them. But Bezos had done the math. Prime members didn't just use free shipping, they shopped more. A lot more. Once that annual fee was paid, every purchase felt free. So they bought. And bought. And bought. Today, over 200 million Prime members worldwide. 200 million people paying Amazon an annual subscription just for the privilege of shopping there faster. That insane idea became the most successful subscription service in retail history. But Prime wasn't just about shipping. It was about lock-in. Once you're paying for Prime, you default to Amazon. You don't comparison shop as much. You don't browse other sites. Because hey, you've already paid for Amazon's shipping, might as well use it. Prime turned customers into members. And members into a moat that competitors couldn't cross. But while Prime was locking in retail customers, Bezos was looking at another industry ripe for disruption: books. Again. Not selling books this time. Reading them. November 2007. Amazon unveils the Kindle. An e-reader. Digital books on a screen designed to look like paper. Now, e-readers existed before Kindle. Sony had one. But they were clunky, expensive, and had terrible book selection. Amazon did what Amazon does. They made it seamless. One-click purchasing, but for books that appeared on your device in 60 seconds. No computer needed. No cables. Just see book, click button, start reading. The first Kindle sold out in 5.5 hours. Amazon didn't restock for 5 months because they couldn't manufacture them fast enough. And here's the brilliant part. Initially, 90% of ebooks sold were for Kindle. 90%. Amazon didn't just enter the ebook market. They were the ebook market. Publishers hated it. They saw their leverage evaporating as Amazon set prices and controlled distribution. But readers? Readers loved it. Carrying 1,000 books in a device lighter than a paperback? Revolutionary. The Kindle wasn't just a product. It was Amazon entering your nightstand, your beach bag, your daily commute. It was Amazon becoming part of how you relaxed, how you learned, how you escaped. Now, here's where Amazon's strategy gets really interesting. Because they weren't just building products, they were buying entire markets. 2008, Audible. $300 million. Audiobooks. Suddenly Amazon didn't just own ebooks, they owned your ears too. Today, Audible controls roughly 40% of the audiobook market. 2009 Zappos. $850 million. Online shoe retailer famous for customer service. Amazon needed to crack footwear and apparel, and Zappos had the customer loyalty and expertise Amazon lacked. But notice the pattern here. Amazon wasn't just buying revenue. They were buying capabilities. Audible brought audio expertise. Zappos brought apparel knowledge and a customer service culture even more obsessive than Amazon's. Every acquisition filled a gap. Extended the empire into a new territory. 2012, Kiva Systems. $775 million. You might be thinking, who? Kiva made robots. Little orange robots that zoomed around warehouses, picking up entire shelves and bringing them to human workers. This acquisition changed everything about Amazon's operations. Before Kiva, human workers walked miles every day through massive warehouses, finding items on shelves. It was slow. It was exhausting. It was inefficient. After Kiva, the shelves came to the workers. Robots did the walking. Humans did the picking. Fulfillment time dropped by 20 to 30%. 20 to 30% faster, which meant same-day delivery became possible. 1-hour delivery in some cities became possible. Amazon could promise faster than anyone because their warehouses were faster than anyone's. And here's the kicker: Amazon stopped selling Kiva robots to other companies. They made them exclusive to Amazon. Their competitors? They still had humans walking through warehouses. Amazon had an army of robots working 24/7, never getting tired, never slowing down. That $775 million purchase paid for itself many times over. 2017, Whole Foods. $13.7 billion. This one shocked everyone. Amazon, the online everything store, buying a grocery chain? Physical stores? Wasn't that the opposite of what Amazon was supposed to be? But Bezos saw what others didn't. Groceries are the highest frequency purchase. People buy groceries weekly. Daily even. If Amazon could crack groceries, they'd see you constantly. They'd become essential. Plus, Whole Foods gave Amazon something they desperately needed: physical real estate in wealthy neighborhoods. Locations that could serve as delivery hubs, pickup points, and Amazon-branded storefronts. The day the acquisition was announced, competing grocery stocks crashed. Walmart, Kroger, Target, all down. Because if Amazon was coming for groceries, nobody was safe. And Amazon didn't waste time. Within hours of closing the deal, they cut Whole Foods prices. Organic avocados down. Eggs down. The message was clear: we're here, we're competitive, and we're coming for your customers. But while Amazon was buying grocery stores, they were also building something straight out of science fiction. November 2014, Echo. A black cylinder that sat in your kitchen and listened. Alexa, what's the weather? Alexa, play music. Alexa, order paper towels. Voice shopping. Voice control. An AI assistant in your home, connected to Amazon's everything store. Skeptics laughed. Who wants a listening device in their house? This is creepy. Nobody will buy this. Today, over 100 million Alexa-enabled devices sold. Alexa is in cars, in hotel rooms, in office buildings. Kids grow up talking to Alexa like she's part of the family. And think about what this means. Amazon isn't just in your computer anymore. Not just in your phone. They're in your living room, your bedroom, your kitchen. You're having conversations with Amazon. And every time you say, Alexa, order, you're not price comparing. You're not browsing. You're just buying, instantly, from Amazon. Echo made Amazon ambient. Invisible. Always there. The buying didn't stop. The empire kept expanding. 2014, Twitch. $970 million. Video game streaming. 140 million users watching people play games. Amazon saw the future of entertainment and bought a front row seat. Fire TV, also 2014. 10 million devices sold. Amazon wasn't just selling you content, they were controlling the screen you watched it on. 2018, Ring. $1 billion. Video doorbells and home security. Now Amazon could see your front door. They could integrate deliveries, monitor your home, become your security system. 2018, PillPack. $753 million. Online pharmacy. Pre-sorted medications delivered to your door. Amazon was coming for healthcare. 2021, MGM. $8.45 billion. A Hollywood studio with a massive content library. James Bond, Rocky, thousands of films and shows. Prime Video needed content to compete with Netflix. MGM provided it. 2023, One Medical. $3.9 billion. Primary care clinics. Physical doctors' offices that Amazon members could access. Do you see what's happening here? Amazon isn't just an online store anymore. They're your pharmacist. Your doctor. Your security system. Your entertainment. Your voice assistant. Your grocery store. They're not in one part of your life. They're in all parts of your life. But Bezos wasn't done. He was thinking even bigger. Because controlling what you buy isn't enough, you need to control how it gets to you. 2019, Rivian. $700 million investment. Electric delivery vans. Amazon ordered 100,000 of them. Their own fleet, electric, zero emissions, branded with the Smile logo. 2020 Zoox. $1.2 billion. Autonomous vehicle company. Self-driving delivery. Why pay drivers when robots can do it? 2016. Atlas Air. Building their own air cargo fleet. Why depend on FedEx and UPS when you can own the planes? Amazon was vertically integrating the entire supply chain. They didn't just want to sell you products, they wanted to make the trucks, fly the planes, drive the vans, walk up to your door, all under Amazon control. No middlemen. No dependencies. Total control from factory to doorstep. 2018, Amazon Go. A grocery store with no cashiers. No checkout lines. No registers. You walk in. You take items off the shelf. You walk out. Cameras and sensors track everything. Your Amazon account gets charged automatically. It sounds like Black Mirror. But it works. Over 30 locations now. Just walk out. Technology that Amazon is licensing to other retailers. Imagine, no more waiting in line. Ever. Just grab and go. And behind all of this? The logistics engine. 185 fulfillment centers worldwide. 7 billion packages delivered per year. Their own planes, their own trucks, their own delivery drivers. Amazon built an infrastructure that rivals the United States Postal Service. A private logistics empire that most countries couldn't match. So let's zoom out and see what Bezos built here. Started with books. Added music, toys, electronics. Then Prime locked in customers. Kindle captured reading. Audible captured listening. Zappos captured fashion. Kiva robots made warehouses smart. Whole Foods made Amazon physical. Echo made Amazon conversational. Twitch made Amazon entertaining. Ring made Amazon your security. PillPack made Amazon your pharmacy. One Medical made Amazon your doctor. MGM made Amazon your studio. Rivian and Zoox made Amazon your delivery driver. Atlas Air made Amazon your shipping company. This isn't a store anymore. This isn't even a tech company. This is an empire. A sprawling, tentacled empire that touches nearly every aspect of modern life in developed countries. You wake up and ask Alexa for the weather. You order coffee through Subscribe and Save. You watch a show on Prime Video. You get a notification from Ring that a package arrived. You refill your prescription through PillPack. You pick up groceries at Whole Foods. You listen to an audiobook on Audible. You end your day with another Prime delivery at your door. All Amazon. All interconnected. All feeding data back into the algorithms that predict what you'll want next. Bezos didn't just build a store. He built an ecosystem. A world where leaving Amazon means leaving convenience itself behind. And the scary part? The brilliant part? The part that makes competitors wake up in cold sweats? He's not done. Because while Amazon was conquering retail, logistics, entertainment, and healthcare, Bezos was looking up. Literally. Up at the stars. And he had plans for those too. Let's talk about money. Real money. The kind of money that makes Amazon essentially untouchable. First quarter of 2025, AWS, Amazon Web Services, that little side project born from excess server capacity, generated $29.3 billion in revenue. In 3 months. $29.3 billion. And here's the beautiful part for Amazon. Those aren't just revenue dollars. AWS operates at 39.5% margins. That means for every dollar AWS brings in, almost 40 cents is pure profit. To put that in perspective, most retailers are thrilled with 5 to 10% margins. Amazon's retail business? Often razor thin, sometimes even losses in certain categories. But AWS? It's a money printing machine. A machine that subsidizes everything else Amazon wants to do. Want to spend billions on Prime Video content? AWS pays for it. Want to invest in electric delivery vans? AWS pays for it. Want to lose money undercutting competitors on prices? AWS pays for it. AWS is the fortress that makes Amazon's empire unassailable. And AWS isn't just big, it's dominant. 31% of the global cloud market. 33% of Fortune 100 companies run on AWS. Think about that. 1 in 3 of the biggest companies in the world trust their most critical operations to Amazon's infrastructure. That's not just market share, that's dependency. That's lock-in. That's a moat so wide, competitors need years and billions of dollars just to compete. Microsoft Azure is fighting hard. Google Cloud is throwing money at it. But AWS had a decade head start, and in technology, first mover advantage is everything. But AWS isn't just printing money from cloud storage and computing. Amazon is now subsidizing their retail business with something even more valuable: AI. Amazon is designing custom AI chips. Not buying them from NVIDIA like everyone else, making their own. These chips power the algorithms that run Amazon's retail operations, and because Amazon controls the hardware, they can optimize in ways competitors can't. The result? AI forecasting that's cut stockouts by 25%. 25% fewer times a customer searches for something and finds out of stock. Now, that might not sound revolutionary until you understand what it means. Every stock out is a lost sale. Every out of stock message is a customer who might go to Walmart.com or Target.com instead. By using AI to predict demand with scary accuracy, Amazon ensures they have what you want, when you want it, almost every single time. They've turned prediction into profit. And there's something called Project Amelia, an AI system that predicts supply chain disruptions with 95% accuracy. 95%. Port strike coming? Amelia knows. Weather delays? Amelia adjusts. Factories shut down? Amelia reroutes. Amazon sees disruptions before they happen and moves inventory accordingly. While competitors are scrambling to react to problems, Amazon already solved them 2 weeks ago. And then there's the patent fortress. Amazon holds over 20,000 patents. Everything from one-click purchasing to drone delivery systems to warehouse robotics to AI algorithms. These aren't just legal documents, they're barriers to entry. Every patent is something a competitor can't do without licensing from Amazon or inventing around, which takes time and money. That one-click button we talked about in segment 1. Amazon enforced that patent aggressively. For years, no competitor could offer the same seamless checkout experience. The drone delivery system they're testing? Patented. The AI logistics optimization? Patented. The cashierless store technology? Patented. Amazon isn't just building the future, they're patenting it. Locking competitors out before they even start. And AI isn't just improving the customer experience, it's slashing costs. Custom AI systems have generated 15% logistics savings. 15% off the cost of moving 7 billion packages per year? That's hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe billions. All from smarter algorithms deciding which box goes on which truck on which route. Competitors are trying to keep up. Amazon is pulling further ahead. But here's where the story gets interesting. Because for all of Amazon's strengths, for all their moats and patents and AI advantages, the siege has begun. Amazon controls 38% of US e-commerce. That's massive. That's dominant. But it also means 62% of online shopping happens elsewhere. And new challengers are emerging. Fast, aggressive, and willing to undercut Amazon in ways that hurt. Temu. Shine. Chinese-based ultra-discount platforms shipping directly from factories, cutting out all middlemen. They're not competing on 2-day delivery or customer service. They're competing on price. Absurdly low prices. T-shirts for $3. Electronics for pennies on the dollar. Sure, shipping takes 2 weeks instead of 2 days. Sure, quality is questionable. But for price-sensitive customers? That might not matter. Temu and Shein are eroding Amazon's low-end market. The customers who just want cheap stuff and don't care about Prime benefits. They're leaking away. Amazon's response? Launch their own discount section. Try to compete on price. But that's playing defense, not offense. That's not the Amazon way. And this is the challenge. Amazon built their empire on selection, speed, and convenience. But if a segment of customers only cares about price, Amazon's moats don't matter. But price competition is just one front in the siege. The bigger threat might be regulatory. Europe's Digital Markets Act, 2024. The DMA forces Amazon to allow app developers to use their own payment systems, bypassing Amazon's 30% cut. 30% of every transaction used to go to Amazon. Now, developers can route around it. And it's not just Europe. Regulators worldwide are looking at Amazon's dominance and asking, is this healthy? Is this fair? Should one company control this much of commerce? 2021, European Union fines Amazon $1.1 billion for ad favoritism. The charge? Amazon was giving preferential treatment to its own products and search results, burying competitors. Amazon's response was essentially, yeah, but everyone does that. Which doesn't actually help in court. This is the problem with being this big. You become a target. Every business decision gets scrutiny. Every algorithm gets investigated. Every acquisition gets challenged. Amazon wanted to buy iRobot, the Roomba company. European regulators blocked it. Too much control over smart home devices, they said. The very dominance that makes Amazon powerful also makes them vulnerable to regulators who decide they're too powerful. And then there's the labor question. At least 6 Amazon warehouses have unionized. 6 facilities where workers voted to organize, to demand better conditions, better pay, better treatment. For a company that's always prided itself on employee ownership and long-term thinking, this is a crack in the foundation. Critics say Amazon's warehouse conditions are brutal. Monitored by AI. Pushed to hit impossible rates. Bathroom breaks timed. Injuries common. Amazon says they pay above minimum wage, offer benefits, provide opportunities for advancement. Both things can be true. But the fact remains, workers are organizing. They're pushing back against the machine. And this isn't just a US issue. Labor disputes in Europe. Strikes in Germany. Protests in India. As Amazon expands globally, they're encountering labor forces with different expectations, different legal protections, different tolerance for American-style warehouse efficiency. The question becomes, can Amazon maintain their speed and efficiency while also addressing labor concerns? Or does improving conditions slow down the machine that made them dominant? There's no easy answer. But ignoring it could fracture the empire from within. And then there's the AI race. Because while Amazon has AI advantages, they're not alone. Microsoft has OpenAI and ChatGPT. Google has DeepMind and Gemini. Meta has Llama. Everyone is sprinting toward artificial general intelligence. Amazon's advantage is infrastructure. AWS runs much of the AI training happening worldwide. But being the infrastructure provider isn't the same as winning the AI race. If Microsoft or Google crack the code on truly transformative AI first, AI that handles customer service better, AI that predicts needs better, AI that personalizes better, Amazon's advantages shrink. This is the double-edged sword of Amazon's position. They're so big, so entrenched, that staying ahead requires constant innovation. The moment they slow down, the moment they get complacent, faster companies can overtake them. And in AI, speed matters. Whoever gets there first doesn't just win, they might win permanently. But there's another siege happening. A quieter one, but potentially more fundamental. Climate change. Sustainability. Carbon footprints. Amazon ships 7 billion packages per year. That's a lot of trucks, a lot of planes, a lot of emissions. And customers, especially younger customers, are starting to care. Amazon's response. Commit to 100,000 electric delivery vans by 2030. Partner with Rivian. Invest in renewable energy. Aim for net zero carbon by 2040. But here's the challenge. It's not just Amazon's emissions. It's their suppliers. The factories in China making products. The container ships crossing oceans. The entire supply chain that feeds Amazon's everything store. Amazon is pressuring suppliers to decarbonize, to use renewable energy, to reduce emissions. But they can't force it. They can incentivize, but ultimately, if a supplier can't afford to go green, what then? Does Amazon cut them off and lose product selection? Or do they compromise on their climate goals? These aren't easy questions. And as climate pressure increases, from customers, from regulators, from investors, Amazon will have to answer them. So here's where we stand. Amazon has built fortress moats. AWS printing 40% margin money, AI systems cutting costs and predicting the future, 20,000 patents blocking competitors, network effects from Prime's 200 million members. But the siege is real. Temu and Shein attacking on price, regulators attacking on monopoly concerns, labor unions attacking on worker treatment, competitors attacking in the AI race, climate activists attacking on sustainability. The question isn't whether Amazon is dominant today. They clearly are. The question is, can they stay dominant? Can they fend off ultra-discount competitors without sacrificing margins? Can they navigate antitrust regulations without being broken up? Can they address labor concerns without slowing down? Can they win the AI race while everyone else is sprinting? Can they decarbonize without losing supplier relationships? This is the paradox of empire. The bigger you get, the harder you are to kill, but also, the bigger the target on your back becomes. Amazon isn't going anywhere. Their moats are too deep. Their resources too vast. Their infrastructure too embedded in modern life. But the easy part is over. The growth at all costs, move fast and break things, day one startup mentality that got them here? That might not be enough for what comes next. Because the future isn't about building an empire. Amazon already did that. The future is about defending one. And that's a very different game. A game where the rules are changing. Where competitors are multiplying. Where customers expect more. Where regulators are watching. Where workers are organizing. Jeff Bezos built the ultimate everything store. He built it on customer obsession, frugality, long-term thinking, and relentless innovation. But empires, throughout history, all face the same question eventually. Can you adapt fast enough to survive your own success? For Amazon, we're about to find out.